Thank you very much. Good to see everyone here. Yes, do a few things in Web3. One of them being a co-founder in NFT Melbourne, which up until November 22nd, 2022 was the biggest NFT event in Australia. But we're glad that NFT Fest is now taking the reins, and it's been an incredible couple of days. Jimmy, how you going, mate? Welcome.
Hey, can everybody see me?
We got you.
You guys hear me all right?
We got you. The audio's working too, which is great. Fantastic, mate.
Yes.
So I wanted to give a little bit of context. So we're going to try and give you a view of the room at some point, because obviously when we were chatting, you wanted to see what's going down. But we've had an excellent couple of days so far. I guess the journey that people are on are sort of anywhere between OGs that you would know, such as GT and Giant Swan, etc., all the way through to people that are sort of just getting into the space. So give everyone a little bit of context about yourself and sort of how your journey's been going so far.
I will, and I'm glad you gave a shout out to GT and Giant Swan, two of my favorites, if I'm not mistaken, from the same place you are, Melbourne.
Yep.
Hello everyone in Australia. Great to meet you. I hope to be there one day to see some of you in person and to enjoy your beautiful country. I started my journey into NFTs indirectly through hiking on the Appalachian Trail over here in the States. It's a 2,300-mile trail that goes north to south or south to north, depending on which way you want to hike. And I had been hiking on it for a couple of months. I ended up making it about 750 miles. And the reason is around mile 700, I met somebody who was hiking next to me. Sorry, I turned my light off on myself. Who was hiking next to me, and they said they were making money while they were walking down the trail. And I said, "How are you doing that?" And they said, I'm mining Bitcoin." And they showed me their phone, how they could handle it all remotely. And the price was like $4,000 a Bitcoin. And I was like, holy shit. I had gone out to the trail to figure out what was next in my life. I had previously been the founder of a Web2 startup. Had made a little bit of money, enough to take a couple of years off, but not retire. And I had to figure out what was next. And I was at a loss after a few years of exploring different ideas. And lo and behold, after a couple months on the trail, sleeping alone, not showering for days at a time, smelling like a wild animal and yelling like one out in the forest to keep the other wild animals away, I found cryptocurrency. And I went home and I got distracted for a couple of months by a beautiful woman. My fiance doesn't like me to tell that part because it wasn't her, but it's the truth. And then after that, I set up my first Ethereum mining rig. I was previously a gamer and I built my own computer. So I figured I could probably figure out how to make a 6 video card computer if I could figure out how to make one with one. And sure enough, I did. I ended up making about 6 of those. So I had about 30 cards mining Ethereum. And I pretty quickly realized I needed something to spend that stuff on. CryptoKitties appeared a couple of weeks later. And I minted my first CryptoKitty on December 4th, 2017. And the rest is history. Yeah,
I very vividly remember them bringing down the ETH network on one of those days. So that was pretty cool. Mate, it's great to, obviously we're talking about, what the next decade could hold and building for the next decade. So it's good to give a little bit of perspective. How I came across you was the Avastars project. Do you want to talk a little bit about, I saw some comments obviously around this whole in-chain, on-chain piece. We had Cairo on yesterday. Let's talk about the fact that you're...
Yeah, I think it's a great time to talk about that, actually.
For sure.
So for anybody who missed it today, who's at the conference and hasn't been super active on Twitter yesterday or today, Moonbirds just released a really cool, innovative update to their project that put all of the Moonbirds art on chain. And they did it in a way that generates and renders the Moonbirds directly from the smart contract, very similar to what Avastars did in 2020 and some other projects since then, like Cyber Brokers and others have done. But they decided to coin it as a new term for what they were doing, called in-chain instead of on-chain. And personally, my reaction to that was like the first thing, I don't know how many people have seen the movie The Intern from years ago, but he talks about, he's like, Vince Vaughn is going to go be an intern at Google. And he talks about putting stuff on the line, and he's putting it on the line. So in-chain feels like on the line to me. But hey, maybe that's the term that sticks. I think what I was giving them a hard time about is I applaud their efforts. They open sourced everything. They made some innovations. They made it easier for people to do things. What I was giving them a hard time about on Twitter was call it what it is, which is an on-chain NFT. If you want to say this is a better NFT on-chain than some other NFTs on-chain, that's cool. But we're trying to build something with the on-chain movement, and we want people to understand and feel like they're a part of something. And, you know, one of the lessons I've learned through my journey here in the space is it's better to be a part of somebody else's community than to be against it. And you want to like find that common thread to be with people. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything people do all the time, but you should find the common thread and try to identify with people. And, you know, I think Moonbird's had an excellent opportunity to embrace and hug the NFT on-chain community, and instead kind of left a bad taste in some of our mouths. But I don't want to take away from the fact that the Moonbirds are an on-chain NFT project. They did it in a really cool way. They open sourced it and made it available. So if other people want to explore ways to do it similarly, they can. And I totally applaud that. I just think we should call it on-chain NFTs.
I love that. I think I could talk to this man for about 12 hours straight. So go and have a look into on-chain, and definitely have a look at Avastars and have a play with their replicant factory, and just get to know, if you're not familiar with the term and the technology, it's really, really important, because it means that no matter what goes down or which founder disappears, the thing that you've bought is going to remain forever. So it's super important. One thing that doesn't get spoken about a lot is, or at least from my perspective, is your company NFT 42 and the involvement in VFriends. Did you want to talk about that experience a little bit? Obviously, you know, Gary's an absolute force, and many people will probably know Gary Vaynerchuk and certainly the VFriends project, but might not know that you were behind that. I'm guessing maybe you brought in Frankie Nines as well from a design perspective. That's just a guess, but do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. Hey, did you guys have Frankie on this week at the conference?
No, I don't think so from memory, but I just, he's a legend as well.
Yeah, Frankie's amazing. Yeah, so it was a really exciting project. It was, I think, late March or early April of 2021 when Gary hit me up and was like, I want to chat. And he's like, I want to build this project and I want to launch it in 6 weeks. And it was pretty insane, but it's not every day that Gary Vaynerchuk calls you and says that. So we spoke to the team, we met, we told him what we could do and what we couldn't do in that period of time. He went out and found resources to do the things that we couldn't do in that period of time. And we worked with him and his team to create VFriends. Gary sat down and drew all the art and everything else. Frankie helped design some of those amazing backgrounds and the other assets around that. Our team helped create the NFTs themselves, which are excellent NFTs in so many ways technically. And then we launched and did that project. It was an amazing project. I think it's still standing near the top of the leaderboards, top 10 or something like that in projects overall. And it's led to so many other great, amazing opportunities. And Gary's been a great mentor to me in the space. And, you know, he's someone I look up to quite a bit.
No doubt. Absolutely. Likewise. And, you know, that was one of the first, I'm going to say subjectively significant utilitarian NFT projects leading from the front. Obviously, he's got significant resources, and you know, regardless, it was still an enormous risk. Aside from the fact that ETH almost halved the day after the drop, and he was in a lot of strife. Like no matter how much money you've got, that was a serious undertaking. So, how do you see that? You know, the utility piece from an NFT perspective going into the next decade or so? Where do you see that sort of developing? I mean, that's a pretty loaded question, but yeah.
No, I think it's a great question. So for those who aren't familiar, the utility that came out of VFriends was he announced he was doing a conference for 3 years. And by holding a VFriends, you got a pass for each of those 3 years. And he's issued that as an additional NFT, and you can go out and claim that and sell that pass or go if you want. It has been a great project, and I love that Gary did that utility right out of the gate and recognized that this is the opportunity. I think it's a really early expression of what this utility looks like. Utility can come in very many forms, and we've only really just scratched the surface with the examples. The other one I really love, in addition to like the idea of having a membership pass and having access to things, which is what VFriends is that some NFTs these days are coming with commercial rights. Another thing that Avastars did in 2020, but other big projects since have come out, like Bored Apes, who give commercial rights to their Bored Apes holders, such as myself, and people like myself have gone out and created experiences with that license. I've signed a deal with Universal music for the band Kingship. And now we have our own NFT project, and we're getting ready to release music with Grammy Award-winning artists. And this is all based on the fact that I bought an NFT that came with commercial rights, which is a utility, and that those rights are able to pass to me through a license by holding the NFT. You can extrapolate that outward to anything that can be licensed out or licensed and passed through a systematic licensing method. And I think that music rights and things like that are some examples that we see today. Large catalogs are selling for a lot. How are there ways you can get community involved with that in the future? It could involve financial instruments themselves, like stocks and things like that. I'm not sure if the stock market's going to want to go that direction or not, but really there's no limit to what NFTs are capable of doing. It's that we can now program in this trustless layer into the internet that works on top of everything we've already built.
Love that. Now, I just wanted to pull you up there. You didn't get one of those NFTs. You minted 300 and how many Bored Apes?
No, 420 Bored Apes. A fantastic 420 Bored Apes. It's pretty bored on a Friday night. I may have been under the influence of something.
So, mate, you've always been a leader from an onboarding perspective. Like, you were throwing around some of those apes like Skittles. And I was talking to the Motor DAO guys around their conversations with you, and they thank you for convincing them to buy a few. You know, what do you think people can do from an onboarding perspective? You know, hand-to-hand combat, obviously many people like yourself have a big platform, but events like this is a great thing. But then also, you know, the hand-to-hand combat perspective from a magnification perspective, how do you think we can sort of do a better job in that regard?
You know, I think the onus isn't as much on us as a community. It ultimately comes down to each of us as an individual, caring about what it is we're doing, evangelizing it to those who don't understand it yet, and educating them on what it is that we're doing, and not just trading pictures of monkeys on the internet, which we are doing sometimes, to be fair. But it's not the only thing we're doing. What really needs to happen is more projects need to come online that are appealing to a mainstream audience, and we need to pique their curiosity. And then once their curiosity is piqued, we need to be ready to educate them on what's important and what matters and how to be safe in the space. I think, you know, the worst thing that can happen is people come into the space quickly and with some FOMO and don't learn all of the ins and outs and understand the caveats and the pitfalls, which we see so many of ourselves have experienced and our friends have experienced in the space if we haven't experienced it ourselves. So it's really a long effort here. We can't expect, you know, what happened in 2021 when a lot of people learned about NFTs. A lot of us that were in the space in 2018 and onward didn't really expect that surge to happen for several more years, not even yet. Like 2025 was our target for what happened in 2021. We got a little bit over our skis in a good way, I think. We're learning quicker, we're moving and innovating faster, more money has come into the space, a lot more money has come into the space, and now we're getting the attention of all the big brands in the world. The biggest technology firms are coming in. Instagram now has a platform for NFTs. Meta is doing NFTs. You can assume that everybody else is also doing NFTs in some form. If they're not doing it, they're looking at it. So the world is going to learn about these things. We're probably not going to call them NFTs. Maybe we'll end up calling them digital collectibles. Whatever sticks in the mainstream, whenever that first project hits, whenever that fortnight of NFTs hits, whatever we're calling them, then is probably what we're going to call them. I would just say, you know, yeah, just be ready, be open. I wouldn't try to push it on anybody who's not ready to learn about it. And if it's somebody that you think you should get interested, I would teach them about the bases and foundations of the blockchain before you expose them directly to NFTs, even though NFTs might be the thing that ultimately helps it click. You know, we've always thought, my friends and I have always thought that NFTs were the Trojan horse of blockchain. And I still very much believe that DeFi and all that's exciting for the banking sector and investors. But for the everyday people, we're normal people. We just like to collect things and shiny objects, and NFTs fit that niche very well. No doubt.
The cultural relevance is definitely the Trojan horse for the penny to drop for people to understand, right? For sure. We've seen that already. You mentioned around the commercial rights. You also mentioned the Universal deal, and I want to talk about Kingship a little bit. Out of all those apes that you still own, why did you choose the 4 that you chose for the band? And tell us a little bit about the project.
Well, it was a collaborative effort between myself and the music executive over there, Celine Joshua, who is the heart and soul of Kingship. It was really her brainchild, and I just happened to have a large catalog of apes and was able to basically say, listen, this is the most important project I'm working on with my apes. You can have your run of the mill here and pick the ones that you really want. And to be honest with you, like, she picked my ape that I represent myself as on my profile picture. And I recently had to change that ape because I felt like that ape's now a member of kingship and doesn't like represent me as a person in the metaverse today. So I have a new ape with a black suit and a beanie hat. I used to work at Google for a bit, and so trying to just tie it all in.
No, I love that, mate. I've been in music for a long, long time. I appreciate, and we all appreciate, the advocacy on your side from a royalty perspective, and just the amount of art that you've bought in Web3. It certainly goes a long way. And, you know, I had a chat with Giant Swan a couple of days ago on my podcast, and he can't speak highly enough of you. Tell us a little bit about GODA, Gallery of Digital Assets. And, you know, it might be pretty obvious where I'm going with this in terms of, you know, why you put that together. But we'd love to sort of tell the crowd a little bit about, you know, your passion and your vision behind that project.
Sure. First and foremost, I want to say I learned this morning, well, it's nighttime for me now, but this morning, about 12 hours ago, I learned I actually get to meet Travis, Giant Swan, in Art Basel next week.
Yeah,
in
he
Miami.
decided like 2 days ago that he was flying. He wasn't going before.
I'm so stoked, man. Like, that's like such a great thing, because that's one of the artists that I connected with earliest and have identified with and collected for probably 3.5 years now, maybe a bit shorter, a bit longer, but right in that range. I think I probably hold like 15 or 16 of his one-of-ones. Some of my favorite pieces that I connect with the most in my collection. And my experience with artists like Travis and others, really Hackatow, which I have a Hackatow there in the corner. This is Josie Bellini actually painted one of my crypto kitties for me. So that's a Josie. It's just a crypto kitty. So I collected a lot of artists that I really admire in the space and got to know some of them really early. And then, so I really identify with the art side of NFTs, not just collectibles. I really like to run the full gambit of NFTs. It's a broad technology that I'm an NFT maxi in general. I just want to see it adopted. But GODA was a really interesting opportunity because of some of the relationships that I forged along the way in my NFT journey. A really unique group of people kind of formed at the right moment in time. And we came together to create something a little bit different than what people are doing today with NFT art, where we wanted to introduce contemporary artists with traditional artists, contemporary artists that are not yet heavy into the digital space and NFTs. We wanted to bring them into the NFT community so that we could bring their collectors into the community, and we can introduce these established artists into our community, hopefully then resulting in more people paying attention to our space and collecting in our space. So we felt like it was a great opportunity to do that with the people and the all-star team that we have. I was the resident NFT expert in it all. The guys are all coming up, guys and gals are all coming up to speed pretty quickly on everything. But you know, credit to where credit's due. We have some amazing people. Todd Kramer, who has the Ross Kramer Gallery in New York. We have Sean Neff, who created a snowboarding brand called Neffwear, if you ever wore some Neff hats or any of that kind of stuff. We have Pharrell Williams. We have Cause. We have some amazing Nina Chanel, who was the first artist. And Nina is just an incredible artist who is really breaking through kind of to that mainstream. I have a Michael Jordan sweatshirt that's a collaboration with Nina Chanel. And, you know, she's done Uno cards and things like that, similar to Gary Vee. So really what this is just an opportunity to have broader exposure for NFTs to the world where people are already participating and buying art. And so far, so good. We'll have a pretty heavy presence down on Art Basel next week as well.
I love that. I'll take this moment just to shout out the Oshi Gallery crew. GT has a gallery here, and they've been doing a lot of onboarding. Their foot traffic there is incredible. They have about 100 people that go through there every day, and they're there daily and educating people on exactly what you were saying around, you know, sort of Web 2 and giving people the option and helping them understand that you can do digital and physical. And I almost said digital and physical. I'm not going to say it. I just wanted to take the opportunity there. And I heard that Greg from NFT Fest was going to pay for GT to fly over to Art Basel. So I've just put him on the spot there. So Thanks for remembering.
I've met GT in New York. If I'm not, no, it might have been Miami last year. Actually, it was Miami last year. I think we met around our Basel. So, awesome. And he's an incredible guy as well. Like I know basically three people in Melbourne, but I know GT, I know Giant Swan, and I know Theo.
Well, we'll have to get you here in a few months, mate. We'll talk about that later. Yeah. So on the royalty piece, there's been a lot of talk around royalties, and like I said before, a big thank you for being a really strong voice on the good side of history. You spent, I didn't actually check the amount, but 8 Bored Apes at the time was what, a measly 400 ETH to show support for the fact that at that point in time, you buying those apes, the creators continued to get the royalties. So we're very clear on which side of the argument you're on. But do you want to talk a little bit about the importance of that, the whole marketplace enforcing the royalties, and where you see that going?
Yeah, I do. And thanks for bringing that up. So the reason that royalties are important is the royalties are the magic. It's the X factor. It's the intangible. It's the thing that came out of nowhere that no one really expected, that has allowed this very quick creation of this entire space. And the great example we can give here is Bored Apes, who minted out at 800 ETH. It cost 800 ETH to mint out their entire project. Today's value, that's probably $1 million. That in no way could have funded what they have created. It was funded because of the immense popularity and market volume that led to them getting a small 2.5% fee on top of every legitimate sale on those platforms that respect royalties. And that helped them fund, VC funding and everything else, because it showed the potential of this very small royalty on this ongoing sale. And so that's an example for a company and why it's important and why Bored Apes is actually important. I know it's really easy to hate on a really big project that, people don't think maybe deserves it. There's plenty of projects out there that are successful that I don't think deserve it, but they're out there just being successful. But there's an important project because it set a standard, it showed potential, it got investors and money excited and showed them the potential, and they put their money where their mouth was. If you take it down from like a project level and a large corporation level to somebody like my friend Travis, Giant Swan, Giant Swan does command a good premium for his art. He's I would say like a decently successful artist in the scope of things, right? And he's an amazing artist. He's underappreciated and undervalued still. So I'm able to get his stuff for a lot less than an X copy or some others, for example, right now. But if he has that moment in the future and I ever decide to sell any of the artwork that I own of his, he should benefit from that. If I'm selling it for 100 times more, 10 times more, whatever it is, he should get his piece of that, because it's his success that is giving me and allowing me to sell that for more. And it just makes sense. Like today we pay, I don't know what it is over there, but in the States here, I don't do it a lot, but we use like eBay, and we can pay up to like 30%. On an app store, we pay like 30% fees just to the marketplace. The creators have to like build in all kinds of extra stuff just to cover their 30% marketplace fee. Here we're talking about a system where markets are taking 0.5% to 2.5%. Right now, collections and artists are taking anywhere from 0.5% to 10%. It's still on the whole like less than half of what bigger markets are taking today. And it's extremely fair. It helps the people that created things directly, and it funds future innovation. One thing collectors are very conscious of, too much so, but it's understandable, even myself, is floor prices of projects and artists and things like that. Crap, I just lost my train of thought there. But we're too focused on that. In the long term, what we should be, I got it back. What we should be allowing creators to do is to just be themselves and create as they're inspired, and not in the need to constantly make an income and to like prey on collectors like ETH or things like that. When you give things space to grow and room to breathe and really just put your passion into it, and it's successful and everybody succeeds, the collector and the artist themselves, that's the magic that I was talking about that happens with royalties. You feel so much better to succeed with other people rather than by yourself. It's very lonely to be successful on your own. And royalties are the magic that allow everybody that's participating in that community or in that artist or in that project to be successful together.
No doubt, mate. Well said. continuously, enjoying the way that you really do advocate for that. So we appreciate you, brother. There's so many more things that we could talk about. I do want to touch on Nameless a little bit because of how it's sort of supporting the space. We have some incredible builders in our country. Some of I was just listening to in the other room that are building tools for the space. Do you want to touch on Nameless and the product that you've released recently as well?
For sure. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to shill to all of you now. So listen, it's pretty simple, right? Like what we ended up building as a result of VFriends. So call back to the earlier example. When we built VFriends, we learned so much about what was possible at the time, what larger projects were going to need, what tools were lacking in the space. And while we had broader plans initially to build a full stack minting platform, like top to bottom, we started at the bottom, which is we needed a private test environment. Because when we were doing VFriends, we were constantly every 4 hours deploying a new contract with fake test examples onto a public test net and trying to make sure that all this stuff was done right. And it was nerve-wracking and stressful and all in public for anybody who was looking. No one was really looking at that place at that time. But today, a lot of people are looking at those things. So we built a private test net. It's called Stealth Test. And it allows you today to launch an Ethereum, Arweave, or IPFS nodes, or all three, and to fund any wallets that you wanted with fake Ethereum from any of those instances that you deploy, fake Arweave tokens. You don't need tokens for IPFS. And to test your project, just as you were testing it on a test net, a public test net, but test it privately and do all the things privately until you're ready to launch your project to the public. And it works with all the tools that developers use today because it's literally generating, an address and an RPC to like connect to the network. And we do some other simple stuff in the background, keep that thing running on Google Cloud. I think it's incredibly useful to anybody who's developing in Web3, not just limited to NFT projects, but anybody who wants to tinker around and understand these blockchains. We will be adding more blockchains like Polygon and others in the future. Today it's Ethereum and Arweave, but give it a try. Go to nameless.io, sign up. I think there's a 14-day free trial, and then it's like $100 a month after that, which is too cheap if you ask me for what it provides, the peace of mind and making sure no one's front running your project and isn't stealing any information or trying to figure out how to hack the community ahead of time. $100 a month isn't a bad deal. So give it a shot. Tell me what you think on Twitter.
I appreciate that, man. We definitely will. Once again, thank you so much for your leadership, for your innovation, for everything you're doing for the space. It's been an absolute honor personally to follow you, but also now be able to speak to you, and hopefully we can meet in person in a few months' time. Make
Likewise,
some noise
Theo.
for Jimmy.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Mate. Cheers.